lag, I think. So I'm not sure if we're live or we're not live, but I'm going to start talking anyway and see. And I think we're live now, which is brilliant because I see that on my other computer. Guys, welcome to the Easy Chat live show. This is episode, I believe, 128. So it's been a lot of episodes, and I'm delighted today. It's an unusual day, Monday for me. We have a bank holiday weekend today. It's a Halloween Halloween is tomorrow, but kids are off school, so I'm getting an extra day sort of to enjoy myself. But I am adding to that with a wonderful interview with an inspirational speaker, writer, coach who helps people who feel stuck in their life and relationships take their steps to get unstuck. So let me introduce you to Jim Burgoon. Jim, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm so glad to be with you today with our Easy Chat.
Yes, I'm so delighted because it wasn't an easy one for us. We had to cancel, I think, 3 or 4 times because life interfered, and I'm so delighted that we made it, because at the end of the day, guys, things happen, but you still, if something matters to you, do it until it's done. Don't give up, and we didn't want to give up. So here we are. And I love the topics that we were discussing, for this show. So I'm really looking forward to where it's going to take us for the next half an hour to 40 minutes or whatever it takes. So Jim, just for people who are joining us, and guys, if you're joining us, please hit that love button. We need some Facebook juice. And remember, you hit the love button, you're getting the juice yourself for your own post later on. So that's how it works. It's given to be re-given. So hit that love button and let us know where from the world you're watching, because I noticed a few people watching now. Let us know where you are, or even if you're a replay person still, let us know where you're watching from. So Jim, introduce yourself a little bit and tell us a little bit about your story.
Right. Well, my story is an interesting one, so I'll condense it, or we'd be here probably for the next 3 days talking about that alone. One of the things is I've spent the last probably good 15 years in ministry. I'm an ordained pastor. I had helped pioneer a church we had actually just stepped down from. And I even have a master's degree in leadership. And recently I've joined the John Maxwell team for leadership coaching. But that's just not the only thing that's about me. I've been married for 18 years, have a wonderful wife, 2 beautiful daughters. But my wife has a dual mental illness. We've been navigating through crisis, through mental illness for 18 years, which is almost unheard of when you think about what she's dealing with. And we go in that a little later. So I do a little bit of helping people get through crisis, helping people build strong relationships, because we've made it to 18 years, which is number one unheard of anyway, but to have to go through what we're dealing with and making it that long, there's a lot going on there. And then also, I like to go around and as you introduced me, I like to hear or help people who are feeling stuck, because at every place in life we feel stuck. Life, relationships, business, and sometimes we just need help to get unstuck. And I'm that guy to help you brainstorm. I'm going to help you get tools and tricks, and let's get you past in that next step. That's kind of my condensed version. I'm originally from Philadelphia in the United States, in Pennsylvania. For all your world-traveling people that listen in to you, just let you know where I am. But I'm currently in Orlando, so I'm with the mouse, Disney.
Okay, all right, okay. Well, that's an interesting story, and you're right. 18 years is a long time to be supporting of somebody, because I think that's what it is. It's really supporting of somebody who has some sort of, especially if it's a mental issue, and it is. And you're quite young still. What age are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm going to be 40 in April.
Very good. The best time.
That's it.
I can tell you I'm a little bit ahead. So
it's okay.
But this is extraordinary as well, because I think that it's harder for young people to be understanding and supportive of each other as well. It's easier way out when you're younger is to, just give it up and go your separate ways. So where shall we start? Shall we just dive into the deep end and talk about this first?
Yeah, we can. Let's just take a dive and see where the conversation goes.
Yeah. So tell me the story then. Tell me what there's a few things that we want to discuss here, and we want to talk about how to get unstuck. But there's an interesting thing about, and you are a living example of that, is how to build your life and your business in crisis. I think
Yes.
a lot of people can relate to that. I personally can 100% relate to that. I've built my business from every time I start my business, there's some mental crisis going on in our life. Usually, well, it's actually financial or health-wise, it's just been both. So it is interesting for me to hear your story.
Okay, yeah, let's just jump into that. And, because crisis is all around us, if you think about it. And it could be mental illness. It could be maybe you're married to someone who has a health issue. Maybe it's a drug issue, an alcohol issue, or maybe they have a brokenness about them that just constantly seems to need attention. Okay? So my story, my wife and I have been together 18 years. We met in the military. We got out. She's had a mental illness. Matter of fact, she has two of them. She deals with bipolarism and borderline personality disorder. She deals with both of these, but they didn't start to present themselves in the way they do now for a couple years. And so as those formative years of trying to acclimate to each other, husband and wife, we were dealing with this almost monstrous type overwhelmingness of emotion. And if you're somebody who is in a crisis situation, even currently, you understand that you do what you have to, but the wave of emotion that comes from it and the draining is almost too much at times. And you have to fight that burnout feeling. You have to fight to even care about what you're trying to fight for because you're giving yourself away to everyone else. And over the years, because you still have to live. You don't want to burn out. You still have to live. And over the years, I've come to learn a few tricks, a few priorities. Let's say priorities in my life that I absolutely need, or just I'm not going to make it. Because there's days I wake up, guys, that I just don't want to build my business. I don't want to coach today. I don't want to speak today. I just want to roll over and watch Stranger Things on Netflix. I just want to do those things. But I fight those and overcome those things because of what I do. And number one is I invest in myself a lot. Okay? So here's the deal. The greater your crisis, the greater you have to invest in yourself. Because if your crisis is too high and you're not investing in yourself, that gasoline tank's going away and away, and eventually it'll fall away.
That's right.
And all that's left is the crisis. And when all that's left is the crisis, your business falls apart, you fall apart, your family falls apart, and all that's left is that bitter anger from what you're dealing with. So you got to invest in yourself. What do you like doing? If you like walking on the beach, if you like going out and stare at the sun, or well, not stare at the sun, but be out in the sunshine or whatever, do them. And don't be afraid of them. One of the things that I find that people who are in our situation, who have crisis, we feel guilty when we focus on ourselves. That it's huge. We're like, I'm taking me time, and we're like, why do I feel guilty about that? It's so important to do it that we've got to fight those guilty feelings and understand that if we don't do it, then we're going to fall apart and we're going to lose it all anyway.
It is true, a lot of times people would feel guilty with me, it's a little bit different because I feel guilty to spend time on myself when there's no crisis and when things are okay. And then I used to feel very guilty if I want to take a me time. So then how am I not spending this time with my family? And, how is it a me time? However, in the times of crisis, what happened with me is that all my energy just challenged on getting, channel everything into making something happen that will make a difference. And that's how both of my businesses, my agency 5 years ago and now the online business, they started from that in a way, that was that. And it wasn't a mask or escapism or anything. It was not trying not to face the situation. It was actually just taking this and saying, you know what, I have the power right now to change these things. So I'm going to take this. This is the me time with the difference. And but I know that not everybody is like me. And I know what you're saying is so true in most situations.
But what's an interesting thing that you just mentioned? You said when there's no crisis, I feel guilty.
Yeah.
And what I've found over the years is that for some reason we take our lives, which should be like this, and we separate every aspect of our lives, not realizing that everything's interconnected.
That's true.
And if you're not spending time when there's no crisis and you're not building that blocks of consistency and that blocks of habit, guess what? When crisis comes in, you don't do it as well.
I agree with that too.
And that's it. So it's like anything else in life. You have to be consistent. So when there's no crisis, that's the best time to learn those habits because it's like a fire. It's like when your house is on fire. When you call the fire trucks, you want those guys to be knowing what they're doing so that they could put out the blaze. But the truth is that if that guy came and he didn't know what he was doing, he's like, first time he ever held a hose, that's not the time to learn to be a fireman.
That's true. That's a great comparison. Yeah.
So the same goes for our own personal health. Is we've got to be in the times where everything seems okay. That okay, I'm going to learn to take me time, and I'm going to be okay with it because me is okay. I'm okay. But the problem with that is why we struggle with that is we have very little self-value. We have very little that self-worth piece, and we don't like ourselves. Many people don't like themselves, and they're hiding under their success. They're hiding under their business, and they're even hiding behind their crisis so that they don't have to deal with the fact that they really don't like who they are. Because when I focus on me, that brings out all that internal junk that we have because now I've got to deal with that stuff.
Yeah, that could be true. That could be true. I don't know. I'm just thinking like, ooh, am I actually wearing mask? No, I don't think so. But that's a question of how what you just mentioned. It's the self-worth and how you like yourself, or even how you allow yourself to be. And I personally have been working on myself for the last 3 years, really, especially last year was a huge year for me, realizing my self-worth, realizing what I am, actually trying to be what I feel good at being, rather than actually being very I felt like my 30s was kind of lost decade, in my 20s I was more like this. So last year it was like coming back to this and allowing yourself to be what you are finally, and you don't have to seek for anybody's approval. I think that's one of the biggest things. You think, oh, what will they think? Or, will they approve if I'm like that? Or is it going to hurt somebody that I am going to be myself? But no, and that's where the whole question of being authentic comes from, I think. It's just allowing yourself to be yourself.
That's it. And most people don't know who they are, though. And you for your listeners can be the model of what it looks like to be on that journey.
Well, that's true.
That's what it is. And you can say, hey, look, this is what I'm going through, and this is what you can model until you're at your place to show the same to others. But most people aren't even half there. The clients I talk to, the number one thing that I have to help them with, that I enjoy helping them with, is that self-worth piece. I have a particular client who I enjoy our conversations, and very, very talented at what she does. She's a marketer, super talented, and she didn't want to throw herself out there because of that self-worth. She's living it. She has her own personal crisis she's in, and that self-worth, that self-value. We worked 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks so far on self-worth. She's on fire. You'll see her name all over the place. And she's throwing herself out there. She's getting hired now. Because all it was a few tweaks from the lies that you believe and replacing it to the truth that should be there. That you have value, you're beautiful. And that's also really important when you deal with crisis, because crisis will zap you.
Yes, yeah.
It really will. And you look at that because all your energy is on who you're with, not who you are.
That's
and
true.
You forget about it. Yeah.
That is true. And it's not offensive at all to your partner to actually sometimes claim who you are. In fact, I think that they will first maybe there'll be a shock, but then they will align, and they will respect you more, and they will admire you, whether secretly or openly. It doesn't actually even matter. Secretly is good enough for me too.
That's okay too. That's fine.
As long as it's there.
It is. But you understand that is when I step up to be me, that's when change happens. That's when I can help change others. But if I'm always hiding, or if I'm always not willing to step up and have my personal boundaries, then I'm just going to go down the same rabbit hole and fall apart.
Yeah, that's true. I've lived through that. I know exactly, you allow everything. If you don't have that strong core inside you, that confidence in who you are and stand your grounds, with that, you allow everybody to walk over you. And the interesting thing is that people will come into your life somehow. People will appear in your life who will take advantage of that, and they will be walking on you. And, there's it's like you're a magnet for negativity, and so of course that creates more negativity. So therefore, whether it's a simple law of attraction, really, whatever you vibrate, that's what you're going to attract. So you have to work from within. You have to get that. And when it's a very enjoyable process to think about your self-worth, to actually feel proud of who you are and what you've achieved and what you have inside, what you have to give. It's it's a rewarding process, so you're actually becoming happier, calmer, more content with everything, so less stress. I think it's a brilliant process.
It is. Now, if you realize it, with the process, the most valuable gem in the world is a diamond. And it only comes forth after the pressure and time from the most ugliest of rocks, the coal.
Yes, that's right.
And so when you start the self-worth process, we're all lumps of coal. When that pressure happens and that time and you're in the fire for that thing, something beautiful is born from that. And that's the culmination of your life, and that's how much beauty is in that. So I think people need to, when you go through the process, one of the things I share with people, focus on who you're becoming, not what you're going through.
That's true. That is true.
Because if you focus on what you're going through, you will lose sight of the goal. And that's even in crisis in business. I want to be a successful business person, entrepreneur. I want my marriage to be successful. I want all of these things to be successful. If I focus on the have-nots and the ebbs and flows, then I'm going to fall apart. If I focus on where I'm going, that strong vision of that possible future, then I always have the strength to keep moving forward and get myself out of bed that morning to say, this is where I'm going. If I don't focus, then I'm going to get lost in all this storm.
That's right. I always say our family dream, myself and my husband, is to move from Ireland, where we are currently, to Spain. What I'm doing is I am surrounding myself with Spain, and I wake up in the morning. I know that I go and I hustle online and I do the interviews and I do all this because I want to take my business and be location free. Whereas my husband sometimes gives out a lot about the locals, and he doesn't like this and he doesn't. And I always say to him, you have to stop this. You have to stop concentrating on the negative around, because you're just going to get more of it. Instead of not liking what's around, think about what you love there and keep going there, because it's right, it can bring you down, if your why is the most important thing, and you just said it in different words. You need to know the purpose, you need to know what's ahead, what your goal is. And I always say as well, I believe we should all have big dreams, but don't just settle for a dream. Put a date on it. Put a 10-year date on it and make it a goal. The moment you attach the date, it becomes a goal. In my situation, I talk about going to Spain for years, and one day I just realized the only thing I need to do is bring my business online, so I can earn from my computer. And then I said, hang on a second. So my dream can actually happen. So I actually can, and then it became a 10-year dream. And right now it's probably a 1-year dream.
Good.
That is amazing.
It is. That absolutely is amazing.
Yeah.
In leadership, we say this: a dream that isn't written down is just a good idea.
Yeah. And that's what happens. Yeah, it's just there. It's like what I'm describing. I always said, I remember all this conversation I had when I was in jobs, and I'm going to move to Spain. I'm going to move to Spain. But there was no reality. Like you really think, okay, if I win a lottery, but sure, but that I never say there is no possibility that you win a lottery. But really, what are the chances? So this is a good idea, and no, not more than that.
Right.
But when you're doing something, you're looking for resources within you, it all becomes different. You're in control to actually make it happen. And you can, like, how many people move to Spain to live? Of course, loads. And how many people bring their businesses just 6-7 figures? Lots.
Yeah.
I know personally about 100 personal friends. So, why I can do it too. And you can do it, anyone.
And I think that's important when you're living your dream or trying to deal with your dream and get through it, is we always think all these people do it, but we never think, why can't I?
Yeah.
And I think in that self-worth, in that building of your dream, that building of a business, crisis or not crisis, that's going to be there. But the deal is that why not? Why not you? Why can't you have that? And that's that self-worth piece. Maybe you don't feel valuable enough to gain it. Well, that person, when you were younger, who told you weren't worth it, that you weren't good enough, he lied to you. She lied to you. That husband or that wife that walked out on you, they lied to you. When that when that the individual was abusing you for years, they were lying to you. You are not that person who is a victim. You're a victor, you know? Some of those little cliches, don't be a victim, don't be a victor, you know? But there's a truth in that, because we can easily pull ourselves into this victim mentality and I'll never get what I want, or we could use it to fuel us to say, I'm going to gain everything that I know that's in here, and I'm going to get it one day. Well, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's right. And another thing as well, about all the people, you know, you can fall into a trap and say, well, you know, he was abusing me, or she said to me, you know, I'm not worth it, or I don't deserve this. But at the end of the day, all these people are dealing with their issues. So whatever you did or whatever you represented was just pushing their comfort zone. Their issues actually have nothing to do with you. And yes, we as humans, we have the, you know, we say things that we don't mean sometimes, but the words, when they come out, it's impossible to erase that from your memory. So that can affect another person, you know. Yeah, it hurts, you know, and it's impossible to just completely, like, I have a memory of an elephant. If you hurt me, I will remember it for years. I will forgive you, but I will remember, you know, and this is the worst thing about the whole scenario. But it's actually not them hurting you. It's them dealing with some other things as well. So if you get stuck in this mentality that you are thinking he was mean to me, or I had horrible relationships with my dad all my life, I thought my dad abused me, you know, and he was mean to me, and we always had arguments, and you know what, he passed away, and I just looked back at our life, and I realized that, you know, he wasn't abusing me at all. In fact, he was dealing with a lot of things, and, you know, it wasn't even his fault most of the time, you know. There was other things that were, and there was it was an eye-opener, you know, for me, where I grew up thinking that I am a victim in these relationships with my dad, and yet I wasn't a victim at all. In fact, he was such a victim probably to other things that happened to him when he was a child too. And, you know, so at the end of the day, like, blaming someone else for any of these things, no matter how they hurt you, they are still dealing with their own issues. That's the scary, but that's the truth. So you need to look within without feeling like a victim before as well. Just get that. It's a mindset thing. You need to release that.
It really is. We say this, and when we talk about, you know, building business in crisis, because a lot of people in crisis have the same type of hurting thing. They're going to hurt people, because here's the statement: hurting people hurt people.
Yeah.
They may mean it, they may not mean it. That's inconsequential. The truth of the matter is, if I'm damaged and hurt, and that's all I know, that's what's coming out of me.
Yeah.
Now, here comes the second thing, and when you're living with someone in crisis, like if they do have a mental illness, hurtful things are going to come out of them.
Oh, yeah.
I get to choose how I respond. That's the key. You can react or you can respond. You can play into it or you can be bigger than it. Now, one of the things is, and this goes into, you know, building a business in crisis, the first question you asked me, it's a twofold thing. Number one, don't take it personally. I think too many people get too offended too easy.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It really is, because, okay, so they're hurting. Great. Just move on, don't react, respond. But understand that sometimes it's the condition and not you, and you got to just keep moving forward. So don't internalize other people's stuff. Don't internalize other people's challenges, because that's not your responsibility to internalize it. Walk with them, pray for them, but don't internalize it. That's not yours. And then the second thing, if you really want to survive in this world while you have a crisis around you at all times, is learn to walk in forgiveness. Not only forgiving them, but forgiving yourself. Because when you are in a business that is in crisis, like not your business, but your life is in crisis while you're building businesses, guess what? You have to be flexible. Your timing is not going to be the same timing as everybody else's. You're going to miss schedules. You're going to miss appointments. You're going to miss closing deals. You have a list of 17 things to do, and you may only get done one of them. You know what? That's okay. Because you have to be able to forgive yourself and realize that your energy is being zapped, but you can still keep building it one brick at a time and keep moving forward.
You just told the story of this year. basically.
Well, please.
Just, and that's what happens, something life can throw things at you, but it's all about actually when you have your why, and when you really sometimes, in my case, the crisis always makes me think about the dreams and going for them. Yes, the schedule can be real. You can't really even have your calendar. I couldn't even still can't have my calendar link online for people just to come in and book things, because, I have circumstances that these things can be cancelled. And I am not the kind of person who cancels appointments, so I'd rather not have them available, So, but the thing is that, did it stop me from building my online business and starting generating income online this year? No, it hasn't. Does it stop me from doing interviews? No, it hasn't, because, there's things that needs to be done. You just prioritize on that list of 17 things, which is one thing that is most important to do today. And you do that first. So if you get, if you get distracted or something happens, then you can catch up some other time. But the point is that, one brick at a time, it really does work. But even if you have no crisis, even if nothing is happening, when it's sort of stagnant and nothing is happening to kick your butt, into action, you still need to do that one brick at a time.
That's it.
That's the only way you will ever be successful.
Absolutely. And I agree with that. And I would also like to give another little tidbit, little nugget. Apologize, because we want to make things right, but don't be apologetic.
Yeah.
Big difference. Apologizing says, I wrote a post on this, hey, I'm sorry. This is what I did wrong. How can I make it right? That's apologizing. But when we move into apologetic, that means every conversation we're apologizing for the same thing we already apologized. Then that shows your insecurities.
Yeah.
And so at that point, most people will understand if you say, hey, look, I have family emergency. Just say, hey, look, I'm sorry. How can I make this right? But I have to do this. Most people understand that. But when we start being apologetic about it, and then people are like, well, maybe I shouldn't work with you because you seem a little bit too damaged or broken.
That's true. That is true as well. In business, it's very important. Sometimes you might not mean it, but you can give a completely wrong impression. So,
Absolutely.
it's better to just keep going what you're doing. And, whether a lot of people can understand something that happens, emergency or something that happened and you have to cancel something, that's okay. But then you just have to move on. It's so true. It's a great, actually, advice. So, okay, well, let me just to wrap up and just to kind of come up with, I know you've given so many nuggets. So people go and watch this back and, with a pen and paper, write it down. If you feel like, if there's any value, well, I'm sure there's loads of value, but it's not what I meant. But if there's value that you feel this video brought you, click that share button, because, there's a lot of people out there that are feeling stuck, are feeling like things are not moving, maybe dealing with the personal crisis, that you have no idea that they are dealing with this, and maybe watching this will help them to move on and do something with their lives. What is the very first point, what act or action, or what is the very first step you should make if you are feeling like this, and how do you move on? What's the very first thing, do you reckon, Jim, that one needs to make?
Whenever you start feeling this way, usually your frustrations will indicate a place of stuckness or being stuck. When you start feeling those things, I say it's a twofold thing. Number one, take a step back and think through it. Like, why am I feeling this frustration? Because frustration happens because expectations are not met or something is not going forward. So why? Because you have to be able to think about and formulate, okay, what is places that are doing that? Because if you come to somebody and say, hey, I'm stuck, the first thing they're going to ask you, where do you feel frustrated? Because that comes to that second, and they're both tied together. When you get into this place and you want to be unstuck, you have to reach out. That's just what it is. Because you are stuck, and you're not going to get unstuck by yourself. You need somebody in your life, best friend, a coach, consultant, mentor, pastor, whatever, to sit there and walk you through the process of finding the next step that you need to take to get your life back on track.
Do you think, in your experience, that it's better to confide into someone you know or a stranger?
That's an interesting question, because everybody has different value points with that. Because it's easier to do somebody you know other than a stranger, but the question you've got to ask is, does the person I'm talking to have the skill set, the tools, and the ability to get me past this point? If it's your best friend or your Aunt Berthel or whoever, and they don't have that skill set, you can talk until you're blue in the face, and nothing will ever change. But it doesn't matter if it's somebody you know or don't know. Do they have the skill set to get you past this point? That is the biggest question you've got to ask.
That's very interesting, because I've just had this kind of conversation before, and a lot of people would feel uncomfortable talking to people they know, because just in case someday, somehow, this can turn around and come out in a wrong kind of way within that family, because you're still around each other, and sometimes people who are close to us, they don't see your growth, so you might be already over all these things, and that friend you confided in still sees you as someone who is struggling, and they continue treating you that way. That's a danger. That it's just something that came up in conversations with some people with me. That's why I asked.
It's a great question.
Yes,
it really is. My best friend has been my best friend for 15 years, mentor of my life. And I confide in him. And the only reason I can confide in him in that, this guy has taken like a church of 27 people and now he's at 600. This guy he's got a skill set that when I'm stuck, I call him and he helps me through that. Now my mom, I love my mom to pieces, but she doesn't have that skill set. So you really have to balance that out, and trust is a big factor in it. Some people trust people with their dog, but they don't trust people with their life.
That is so true.
All of that plays into factor when you're making the decision.
I don't even trust people with my dog most of the time. But this is an interesting thing. But so this is something that I was just thinking about, this whole thing, because I know a lot of people reach out to me, sometimes complete strangers, with pouring things out, and they would say that even talking to a stranger sometimes helps, because there is no, but again, one thing is to get it off your chest, the other thing is how they can mentor you to get you unstuck from that feeling. Right. It's not always enough to talk. Sometimes it's a good first step, but it's not sometimes enough to take. So Jim, if somebody was watching you now for half an hour or more, and they said, this guy is I just feel I can talk to him and I can feel he can help me, how can they find you?
They can find me a few different ways. JimBurgoon.org. My last name spelled BURGOON.org, so JimBurgoon.org. My email's on there too, so it's jim@JimBurgoon.org. You can email me, or just reach out to me on Facebook. Most of my social medias is my first name _ last name. And I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of that stuff. So I'm pretty easy to find. But on my website, under Contact Me, all that stuff's there as well.
Perfect. And I suppose that if you have a domain name with your name, that even if you just Googled Jim's name, that will come up as well. So, and do reach out. And Jim is brilliant. We just heard, him talking. He knows how to do it. And if you need help, you feel completely stuck, it's not enough for you to just say to somebody, you need help. Jim would be the best person for you to at least even just get in touch, and he will recommend what you can do, and take it from there. Guys, thank you so much for watching us. This was Easy Chat Live, episode 128, and I am delighted. I am going to be here tomorrow with an interesting guest, a business lady all the way from America as well, who doesn't think that we need to do busy work here on Facebook, that's what I teach, the busy work. So I'm so looking forward to actually seeing, but she is brilliant. She's teaching people how to do virtual workshops. I got loads of things from her. So Vanessa Horn is here tomorrow night, and Jim was here today, Jim Burgoon. Thank you very much for joining me, and thank you everybody who was watching this. See you later, see you tomorrow.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.